Welcome to the Cyber Chronicles. My name is Brian Stevenson, and we are going to cover the top 50 most shared articles across the internet for 2018. If you're not familiar with our channel, it's a different type of channel. What we do is we don't decide or edit what's going to be published. We go out and we search on who is sharing what across Twitter, LinkedIn, basically the internet. And so whatever the people are talking about, those become our top 10 every week, or top 5 every week that we talk about. This is going to be a special on 2018 because we're going to talk about the top 50 most shared articles that everybody read across the internet last year. A lot of them you probably forgot about, and so it's going to be interesting. We're going to talk about a lot of breaches, a lot of privacy issues. If you're interested in the Kardashians, this is not your channel. Click off now. If you're a cybersecurity geek like I am, you're going to enjoy some of these articles. I was kind of, amazed when I read through it. I'm like, I forgot all about that. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to hit these things fast because otherwise you guys are going to tune off because you all have ADD, ADHD. Number 50, Quora, the Q&A site, says the data breach affected 100 million users. This occurred. Answer site today, did my personal data got stolen? The social platform said on Monday, account information and private messages around 100 million users have been exposed when the computer systems were compromised by a malicious third party. Quora discovered the breach on Friday. The company's chief executive, Adam D'Angelo, wrote in his blog post, and they're still investigating what happened. So that was our 50 most shared article of the week. You may have forgot about that one already, and that just happened like 3 months ago. Let's move on to the next article. Okay, 2018 could be called the year of the breach. By the way, look at this. These glasses are broken. My head is too freaking big. And we need contributors, so if you need to contribute, please, maybe I can get a pair of glasses that fit me. Number 49, Amazon exposed customers' names and emails in a technical error. To be honest with you, I don't even remember this one. Must have occurred earlier in the year by CNBC. Customers received an email from the company saying their names and emails may have been exposed due to a technical error. Several customers shared emails on social media on Wednesday. Amazon said the problem was resolved, but did not provide clarity on how many users were affected nor how long. In an email affected by the customers, Amazon said it was unnecessary to reset passwords since nothing had been done. So sounds like just a technical error. But it's interesting. A lot of these errors always occur, and they publish them on Friday, late at night, because they hope you don't remember them. So that was our 49th article. Let's move on to number 48. Okay, number 48, we're clicking with gas here. AP exclusive. Google tracks your movements, like it or not. San Francisco AP, Google wants to know where you are so badly it records your movements when explicitly you tell it not to. An Associated Press investigation found as many as Google surfaces on Android devices and iPhones store your location, even if you're using the privacy setting that prevents Google from doing so. Computer science researchers at Princeton's confirmed these findings at AP's request. Number 48, again, we're going to have the links of all these articles too. Interesting. Privacy is gone out the window in 2018. Here's another example of it, and Google tracks your movements whether you like it or not. Let's move on to number 47. Okay, number 47, more than 50 nations, but not the United States, sign into a cybersecurity pact. Sounds very ominous. French President Emmanuel Macron released an international agreement on cybersecurity nations Monday as part of a Paris Peace Forum. Signatures included 50 nations, 130 private sector groups, 90 charitable groups, and a guy named Bob. No, it doesn't say that. Sorry. It's this is going to be a long podcast. They decided, the United States decided not to sign it. Russia didn't sign it. China didn't sign it. It's a meaningless piece of paper. It just says, don't hack us. Well, everyone's hacking each other anyway. So why? I don't know what this is going to deter anyone from doing anything. But it was the 47th most shared article across the interweb. Let's move on to number 46. Okay, number 46 from Engadget.com. I don't remember this one either. I mean, when I was reading it, I'm like, God, I can't remember this one. But White House confirms its chief of staff was hacked. A personal email account by the White House chief of staff, John Kelly, was hacked, according to an email obtained by BuzzFeed. via the Freedom of Information Act, or FOLA, as they like to say. My folks are nervous about the emails that you send and ask you no longer include any of the posting. There's been a hacking of one of my personal accounts that I've suffered. I must do everything now by phone or face-to-face, said John Kelly when he was the chief of staff. So White House chief of staff was hacked for a period of time. That was the article. I didn't talk about any ramifications or what they found or what they did or any of that, but interesting article. We're going to move on to number 45. Okay, number 45 comes to us from Politico. They like to write articles kind of in like a book format. How a hacker-proof cops used his secret government phone tracker to find him. On a warm summer night in 2008, police spotted a man walking across his apartment in Santa Clara, California, one of his many bedroom communities spread across Silicon Valley. Undercover FBI agents found him outside of the building and began to follow him on foot, radioing with their colleagues nearby. The man saw the agents and he began to quickly walk. Anyway, it talks about that the police had been tracking him for quite a long time, but federal investigators believe the hacker and two other men filed over 1,900 fake tax returns online. My God, they must have a lot of time. But they yielded over $4 million across 170 banks in terms of returns. And of course, the hard part is not doing the hacking. The hard part is doing it and not getting caught. They got caught. And it's an article on the Politico, number 45, most shared article of the year. Let's move on to number 44. All right, we're to number 44. Chuck Foreman from the former Minnesota Vikings. Ha! How about that for trivia? Now YouTube ads even see CPU draining cryptocurrency miners. So YouTube was recently displaying ads that covertly leached off visitors' CPU and electricity to generate digital currency on behalf of anonymous hackers. It was widely reported. Word of the abuse ad started no later than Tuesday, and people took to social media accounts to complain that their antiviruses were going crazy. So YouTube had a little bit of a problem there with some ads. Torrents are notorious for this, by the way. If you're looking at torrents or doing anything on the dark web, you are probably going to get loaded up with something that's pulling off your CPU and electricity for these people to do crypto mining. So just don't go those places. That was article number 44. Mr. Chuck Foreman, let's go on to number 43. Okay, number 43. Be cautious. Free VPNs are selling your data to third parties. Come on, not free. There's nothing free on the internet. Nothing is free. If they're giving you free games or giving you free VPNs, they're doing something with that data. People are so stupid to provide their information to these people, but they still do. It's not unusual to find companies using deceptive practices when trying to grow their brands. One niche rife is VPNs. It was recently revealed that 26 of 117 of the most popular VPN services log the customer's data despite contrarian claims in their marketing, because they're free. They're not free. They're tracking your stuff. So stop doing it. Number 43 article, we're going to have the link below. Let's move on to number 42. All right, number 42, Amazon won't say if it hands your Echo data to the government. Privacy again, zdnet.com, great articles they did this year. Amazon has a transparency problem. 3 years ago, the retail giant became the largest major tech company to reveal how many subpoenas, search warrants, and court orders it received for customer data in its half-year period. While every other tech giant had regularly published this information from the government's request for the last 5 years, spurred on acquisitions of participation in government surveillance, Amazon had been largely forgotten. But eventually people noticed and Amazon acquiesced, and it won't say if they're handing over your information on Echo to the U.S. government, because it goes both ways, right? Number 42 article provides ZDNet. We'll have the link below. Privacy in 2018 virtually doesn't exist, but you all know that. So let's move on to 41. Okay, 41 is by the Daily Signal. The Clinton State Department major security breach that everyone is ignoring. Talks about testimony of an email server scandal involving former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Raised headlines because of his defiant, disrespectful, and unapologetic attitude about the bias revealed in his text messages that permeated his work in the FBI. Then there was a verbal combat between him and Republican members of the two committees holding a joint hearing, and between the Republicans and Democratic members who are running interference and acting as defense counsel. So it's one of those things that if something goes bad, you wait long enough, and the attention span of the American public just goes away. Zip, we go on to the next thing. But that was our 41 most shared article across the internet for 2018 by dailysignal.com. Let's move on to number 40. Okay, number 40, CNBC.com. You know, they've done some great work this year on cybersecurity. I just got to say that. When we start doing these broadcasts, you start to realize who contributes and who doesn't. And CNBC, Wired Magazine, Wall Street Journal, of course, HackerNews.com just contributes quite a bit. But Russians penetrated U.S. voter systems, NBC citing U.S. officials. Russians targeted 21 states' voter registration rolls in 2016 election. Of those, a smaller number were successfully penetrated, according to Homeland Security Department official tasked with protecting elections from hacking threats. The U.S. officials say there's no evidence that staters' registration rolls were tampered with, but nevertheless, an interesting article by CNBC, number 40. Let's move on to 39 because it doesn't end there. Okay, number 39, Wall Street Journal. Give me a free subscription, please, because I always promote your stuff. Trump seeking to relax rules on U.S. cyber attacks, reverse Obama directive. Wall Street Journal, President Trump has reversed an Obama-era memorandum dictating how and when the U.S. government can deploy cyber weapons against its adversaries in an effort to loosen restrictions on operations, according to people familiar with the action. So interesting article. We're finally starting to take action, at least loosen the reins a little bit, and we need to start taking an offensive approach to these attacks that are occurring to us from various countries. Let's move on to number 38. Okay, number 38. This one, I don't know how they got this one swiped underneath the table because people still aren't talking about it, but it did hit the number 38. Chinese spy chips were found in hardware used by Apple, Amazon, according to Bloomberg. Apple says, no way. A chip that could have enabled China to view the network of several companies, but Apple, AWS, Supermicro denies its claims, according to a report by Bloomberg. Apple, AWS, and Supermicro dispute the report. Basically, they're saying that they made chips that were put in Supermicro computers that are put in AWS's data center that enable China to view the traffic. And Apple and AWS are denying that that actually happens and saying it doesn't happen. But it's interesting that Bloomberg did not go back on their article and still published it. So it tells you something is interesting there. So number 38 article, and let's move on to number 37. Okay, number 37. Are you sticking with this, kids? Yes, healthcare data breach problem really is that bad, according to HCAnews.com. Over an 8-year span, healthcare organizations reported over, are you sitting down, kids? 2,149 breaches affecting 176.4 million records, according to the federal government. That's just what they know about. The findings were published today in the JAMA network. Argument that healthcare is particularly vulnerable to attacks, and the rise of electronic records appear to have worsened, placing patients at risk, and healthcare providers and insurers and others at stake at the ethical and legal hot water. HIPAA still just not being utilized across a lot of healthcare organizations quite yet. So number 37, healthcare breach problem is very significant in 2018. That was a big problem in 2018. Pick up that article on number 37 on our link below. Let's move on to number 36. Okay, number 36. I really enjoyed this article by Wired Magazine. I still remember reading it. I bought a voting machine on eBay for $100 each, and this is what I found. In 2016, this author purchased 2 voting machines online for less than $100 off the dark web. He found them on eBay, and we assumed there'd be protections on the sensitive information, but completely wrong. The disk drives were still intact. It showed people who had voted, their information, and alarmingly, so when he published this article, they were still available on eBay to buy. So just an interesting article. I bought voting machines on eBay for $100, and this is what I found. So hackers are, we got to make it at least a little difficult for them to get this information, but apparently not. That was number 36. Let's move on to number 35. Okay, number 35, Hawaii Emergency Agency password and a photo sparks security criticism by the businessinsider.com. A false alert warning of an inbound missile was broadcast in Hawaii on Saturday. Since then, people discovered a photo. This is just amazing. You got to click on this article of the Hawaiian Emergency Management System, and behind on the photo, it shows a individual in front of a bunch of screens. And if they zoomed in, and it shows a post-it with a password, and the password written just as password, and it specifically has the password written right there. So of course they came back and said, hey, this was for a system that's not being used, don't worry about it, it's not, whatever. But yeah, if you're working in security and using post-its to write down your passwords, you probably shouldn't be in security. Okay, let's move on to number 34. Okay, number 34. A lot of these articles this year were about the elections and blah, blah, blah. Rolling Stone magazine, California election hacking attempt revealed in documents. FBI agents in California and Washington, D.C. have investigated a series of cyber attacks over the past year that targeted Democratic opponent of Republican Dana, I'm not going to pronounce her last name correctly, a 15-year incumbent who's widely seen as a pro-Russian and pro-Putin member of Congress and a staunch reporter of Trump. The hacking attempts and FBI's involvement in dozens of emails and forensic records obtained by Rolling Stone magazine. That's all they say. I mean, they just say attempts. Everybody's being attempted to be hacked right now. I mean, my personal website, which is like there's nothing on it, people still try to go into my WordPress admin and try to hack into it. So I don't know. This is a meaningless article to me, but it was number 34. Let's move on to 33. Number 33 by Popular Mechanics. You don't see them on the cybersecurity front that much. But VPN filter, malware warning, reboot your computer. FBI issued a dire warning everyone who has a router in their home to do a reboot. Cyber actors have compromised hundreds of thousands of home and office routers in their network devices worldwide. The VPN filter is able to render a small office and home office routers inoperable. The malware can also collect information passing through the router. So it does go back to the security patch and update frequently and often, and one that we always tend to forget about is our hardware, especially our routers, our wireless devices. They have updates just like everything else, but it's just not as user-friendly as it is to update your, say, software patches. So a good article on popularmechanics.com, number 33. Let's move on to number 32. Okay, 32, NSA hidden spy hubs in 8 cities by theintercept.com. I'm not familiar with these guys. I don't know if this is a real website or what, but the secrets are hidden behind fortified walls in cities across the United States, inside towering and windowless skyscrapers and fortress-like concrete structures that were built to withstand earthquakes and even a nuclear attack. Thousands of people pass by the building every day, rarely giving them a second chance, and their function is not publicly known. This article basically says that NSA is in 8 major cities has spy hubs that are tracking the United States, people and what they're doing and everything else. What do you think NSA does? So they have 8 buildings across. I don't know. I just found it funny. So they found out that they had 8 buildings and they're tracking U.S. citizens. That's the NSA. So anyway, that was number 32. Let's move on to 31. Okay, this article states, TheVerge.com, don't use Hathaway phones, says heads of FBI, CIA, and NSA. The heads of 6 major U.S. intelligence agencies warn American citizens they shouldn't be using products and services made by Chinese tech giant Hathaway and ZTE, according to a report from CNBC. See, they did it again. The intelligence chiefs made the recommendations during a Senate intelligence hearing on Tuesday. They're basically saying the devices that they're selling, and they sell these things within the telecommunications networks and phones, are providing information back to China. Is this a theme? It almost seems like a theme. Did we say China before? I can't remember. That was our 31st most popular article. We're going to move on to number 30. Okay, number 30, we're cooking with gas now, kids. Hacker says he's going to live stream the deletion of Zuckerberg's Facebook page. And then they did an update. A white hacker promised to do a live stream to broadcast the deletion of Facebook's founder Zuckerberg's account, but at the last minute, scheduled to go live, he decided not to do so. Apparently, he wanted to have Facebook take his information seriously, and he's posted this, and they probably reached an agreement to say, hey, share the information with us on how you're able to do that so we can patch that hole. So, but he did get a lot of people to click onto his site and start to watch him. So, but he was able to patch a hole in Facebook, which we don't know what it was, but he was obviously able to delete anybody's page at will and share that information with Facebook. So let's move on to number 29. Okay, number 29, businessinsider.com. You can now take entire countries offline. It's just a matter of time because it's really just that easy. The West's biggest security weakness is old electronics and sensors. We just talked about this at the Cyber Chronicle weekly thing. You know, your stoplights and your old infrastructure stuff. A lot of stuff was written in code in the 1970s that is just very, very old. IoT is going to be a huge thing in 2019. But it's not hard to take an entire country's internet offline. It's already happened twice. It shows, they talk about it in the article. And hackers used to be most interested in stealing your credit card information. Quite frankly, you can go on the net now and buy credit cards. Just they're everywhere, so they're not that expensive. But now they're looking at infrastructure stuff. How can they take down ports, power grids, and cities? And that seems to be of interest in 2018. A lot of the national hacker groups or nation states are looking and trying to penetrate those weaknesses. So that was our article number 29, businessinsider.com. We'll have the link below. Let's move on to number 28. Okay, 28, Facebook caught automatically blocking AP and Guardian stories about their massive data breach. This morning, news broke that a massive data breach occurred. About 50 million records that turned, you look towards the end of the year, it looks like it was more like 64 million. But the company blog reports nearly 90 million users were forced to log out of their personal accounts due to security information. Shortly after these reports hit Twitter, Facebook was blocking the Guardian story about the breach being posted on its platform. With minutes, the reports began to circulate in the American press about the breach being blocked as well. Well, it is their website, so they're not a news organization, kids. They can block and whatever they want to block. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion. So I know they got breached, but should they block information? That's their website, dude. They should feel free to be able to block anything, including this podcast. I don't own YouTube. I don't own Facebook. You know, I don't own Google. If they find this stuff offensive, they should be able to block me. I don't own this stuff. So anyway, let's move on to number 27. Okay, we're at 27. New York Times. They also have done a phenomenal job over the last year on articles. The new Russian hacking targeted Republican groups, Microsoft said. In Boston, the Russian military intelligence unit sought to influence the 2016 election appears to have a new target. Conservative Americans who think tanks that have broken with President Trump and are seeking to continue sanctions against Moscow. So they're looking, Russian nation states apparently were trying to influence election results for elected officials or potential elected officials that are not pro-Russia. Big surprise. Number 27th article. Let's move on to number 26. All right, number 26. This is a serious one. New York Times, they also have done a great job. Russian hackers appear to have focused now on the U.S. power grid. We talked about that a little earlier. There was another article that talked about that. But state-sponsored Russian hackers appear to be far more interested this year in demonstrating they can disrupt the American electricity utility grid rather than mid-term elections, according to U.S. intelligence officials. Despite attempts to infiltrate the online accounts of two Senator Democrats up for re-election, intelligence officials said they've seen little activity in Russian military hackers trying to influence American political officials or voter registration systems this year. So it's kind of contrary to what some of the other articles said, but it looks like, according to this article in the New York Times, that the nation-state hackers have migrated their focus from trying to influence elections more of trying to make sure that they control American utility grids. So interesting article in the New York Times, number 26. We'll have the link down below. Okay, number 25. Now, this is you guys reading this crap. Porn watching employee infected government network with Russian malware. Number 25. An employee at the U.S. Geological Survey was told to ratchet up their internet security after the Interior Department watchdog group said that it had been infected with malware by one of their employees watching pornography in a report published October 17th. Number 25, kids, if you're going to watch porn, don't do it at work. God. You're a government official and you're looking at Russian porn sites. Good idea. There's a genius for you right there. That was number 25. Let's move on to number 24. Okay, this is a serious one again. Washington Post. China hacked a Navy contractor and secured a trove of highly sensitive information on submarine warfare. This is a pretty serious hack. Chinese government hackers had compromised the computers of a Navy contractor, stealing massive amounts of highly sensitive data related to undersea warfare, including secret plans to develop a supersonic anti-ship missile for use on a U.S. submarine by 2020, according to American officials. These breaches occurred in January and February, officials said. That's about as bad as it gets. So that was number 24. This is why we need to start to take an offensive approach when people do something like this. If this is true, by the WashingtonPost.com, the U.S. government needs to react in kind. So that was number 24. Let's move on to number 23. Okay, number 23, after the Equifax breach, anger but no action, massive Equifax breach. That was probably one of the biggest breaches of the year, 145 million Americans. So many articles written about it. So basically anybody has a job, their information was breached. No action at all. Anger, but just no action at all by Congress in creating security laws to make sure this doesn't happen again. I don't know if laws will actually stop it. I don't think it will, but there should be some sort of action that occurred, in particular a breach of that size, and then when they turn out to find out the breach could have been stopped by just simple patch management and other things. There's other articles written about actually what happened in the Equifax breach. It just it enrages you. So 23 article, political. Let's move on to number 22. All right, number 22. If you stick with us this long, you are a cyber geek, my friend. Congratulations. Microsoft says it found Russian operations targeting U.S. political institutions. See, we're going after infrastructure, going after politics, infrastructure, politics, infrastructure, politics. I guess they can't figure out what they're doing. The group affiliated with the Russian government created a phony version of 6 websites, including some related to public policy in the U.S. Senate. Apparently a goal to hacking the computers that people thought were tricked into visiting, according to Microsoft, and which said Monday night that it discovered and disabled the fake sites. The Russian group APT-28 was linked to the Russian intelligence group, and APT-28, that sounds like FireEye probably discovered this. I'm not sure about that, by the way. That's just my opinion. So WashingtonPost.com, pick up that article, read it, interesting. You know, I don't think they're doing one thing. I think all they're doing is stuff all in parallel. They're not just doing infrastructure and political and everything. They're doing all of it. But there's not an either or. It's an and. So anyway, let's move on to number 21. Okay, I'm going to clip through this one quick. This is because we keep covering this stuff. Vox.com, midterm elections 2018, cybersecurity and Russia hacking remain a major concern. That's it. Let's move on to number 20. Okay, number 20. This was really kind of an interesting article to read. U.S. soldiers are revealing sensitive and dangerous information about jogging. So it talked about the fact that a lot of these people use these fitness apps on their wrists when they jog and they exercise, and it has GPS locators, and they're able to track where they're going, and information by that could be utilized by bad characters to find out where the good guys are walking and running and exercising every day according to a global heat map. So interesting article, Washington Post, number 20. Pick it up, read it. It's just a real interesting aspect to look at cybersecurity and what we're moving into with all this connection of all these devices that we have. So let's move on to number 19. Okay, so number 19, Wall Street Journal article, the Facebook breach. A lot of people talk about the Facebook breach this year as one of the biggest breaches ever, 67 million, something like that. I don't know if they have the actual count yet, but Wall Street Journal's potential a $1.63 billion fine in Europe over its data breach. Facebook has had a lot of challenges this year. This is the year of Facebook security challenges. They are trying to address it, it looks like, from the outside looking in, by hiring quite a few people to come in and take a look and try to secure this stuff. But they continually have issues, and if it's a $1.6 billion fine, that gets the attention of even a company as large as Facebook. So that was number 19. Let's move on to number 18. All right, number 18. Quite honestly, I was surprised by this, and then I'm not surprised. But Google Plus security bug. So Google discovered a security bug that gives third-party developers access to private data of users, given its social network. They've decided to shut down Google Plus because of this. Well, and because it really never took off. I mean, it never really took off like Facebook did. But it's just kind of surprising. A company the size of Google just says, we can't even secure this thing. So we're going to move up the shutdown 4 months from when they originally discovered it, and we can't secure it. It's just not, we're not able to do that, so they're just going to shut it down. So the bad guys win in this case, in my opinion. By shutting this down, it's basically, throwing up a white flag and saying we can't protect our clients' information from the bad actors. That was number 18, CNBC, good article, pick it up. Let's move on to 17. All right, number 17, we actually talked about this a little bit earlier too. New York Times, APT-28 and Fancy Bear Russian intelligence units were taking control of people's routers, and FBI told everyone to reboot and get a firmware upgrade. So we're not going to talk about that link, but that was the 17th most shared article across the internet by the New York Times. The link will be below. Let's move on to number 16. Okay, number 16 by cybersecurity.com. He's probably one of the guys I look to every day, read his blog posts and column. One of the leaders in our space. Don't give away historical information about yourself. Social media sites are littered with seemingly innocuous little quizzes, games, and surveys. You're urging people to reminisce about specific topics, like what was your first job, what was your first car. The problem with participating in these informal surveys, you're also inadvertently giving away answers to the secret questions that can be used to unlock a host of your online identities and accounts. So Krebs Online is recommending that you do not do that. By the way, one of the things I do recommend is making things up. Your questions, what is your first car? Make it up. If your first car was a Pinto, say it was a Ford F-150 pickup. Just remember that. My mother's maiden name, what's your mother's maiden name? Ozzy Osbourne. Make it up. Don't give them the information that's really real on these security questions. Make up the answers as well, and that way if they do find some of your information out on these websites, they can't utilize it against you. That's just a little suggestion by the Cyber Chronicle. Let's move on to number 15. Okay, number 15, theregister.com. Equifax reveals full horror of monstrous cyber heist of its servers. So Equifax has published yet more details of personal attacks on this article. The good news is the number of information of individuals affected by the network intrusion has not increased from the 146 million people. It's because there's no one left. The good news is it hasn't increased from our entire database. We're 99.9% have been compromised, and we don't have any more people left. But in February, in response to questions by Elizabeth Warren, a U.S. Senator, Equifax agreed that card expiration dates and tax IDs could have been among the data that's been siphoned, and is not yet worked out on how many people have been affected. So just a big breach. Number 15, if you've not done so already. In fact, I wrote a blog post about this. Lock down your security for yourself, your kids, and everybody. In today's environment, you need to lock down your credit. That way they can't take this information and utilize it in a bad way. So let's move on to number 14. Okay, number 14 by themotherjones.com. I think the only time that we've seen them in this top 50. New report says Dutch has absolute proof that Russia was behind the 2016 election hacking. They were able to break in, apparently, into the Russian hacking system themselves. So they hacked the hackers into Cozy Bear, and they were able to find out exactly what they were doing, and information in this hacks were provided to the United States government, and of course we have done nothing. But that was number 14. Mother Jones said they had absolute proof that Russia was behind this hacking. There's so many articles and stuff about the hacking stuff, but that was number 14. Let's move on to number 13. Okay, number 13, NBC News. Trump administration has no central strategy for election security, and no one's in charge. Is this an opinion piece, or is this an actual news article. After 2 years of calling Russian election interference hoax and its investigation witch hunt, President Donald Trump on Friday presided over the first national security meeting devoted to defending American democracy from foreign manipulation. The President has made clear his administration will not tolerate any foreign interference in our election from any nation state or other malicious actors. But the current and officials tell NBC that after 19 months in this presidency, there's no coherent Trump administrative strategy to combat foreign election interference, and no single person or agency is in charge. So article number 13 is very politicalized, but read it if you're interested. Number 13, let's move on to number 12. Okay, number 12, ZDNet. I love this article. Mysterious gray hat is patching people's outdated routers. So Russian-speaking gray hat hackers breaking into people's routers and patching them so they won't be susceptible to crypto hackers, botnet herders, or other cyber criminals, ZDNet had learned. So that's kind of an interesting article. This guy in Russia apparently boasts his hobby on blogging out platform. He accesses people's routers, and then he sets up the rules on their routers to make sure that they can't be hacked by anybody else. So interesting article number 12. Let's move on to number 11. All right, number 11, U.S. intel, Russian compromised 7 states prior to the U.S. election, blah, 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 NBC News. 7 states were compromised. This election stuff, it was covered so much during the year. That was number 11, NBC News. If you're interested in it, you can talk to it. Let's move on to number 10. Okay, we're moving to number 10, and to get to this point, by the way, kids, you have got to have about 60,000 shares across the net. System error. Japan cybersecurity minister admits he's never used a computer. Yeah, that's a good idea. So he's the minister in charge of cybersecurity, and he astonished everybody by not even understanding what a USB drive was. Seems to make sense to me. Put him in charge of cybersecurity. He seems like he's going to help out your country quite a bit. Number 10 article, The Guardian. So the Japanese cybersecurity administrator has never used a computer. You just can't make this stuff up. This is like SNL. That's our top 10 article. Number 9, we're moving into some heavy traffic articles here, kids. Let's hang on. So number 9 article coming up next. All right, number 9. This was also an interesting one on AJC.com. Inmates hacked prison tablets and transferred nearly $225,000 to their accounts. Apparently, inmates are giving these tablets called from JPay, and they can transfer information and data and dollars between inmates and people from the outside world. And they found out that some of the inmates had found out a way to hack the system and transferred nearly $225,000 into their own accounts. Good job. So that was number 9 article, and they did find out, the hack, and they patched it up, and it was easy to arrest the person because they were in cell block C. Just kidding. That probably it's not true. Let's move on to number 8. All right, number 8, and we keep talking about this, but I do think this is an important article. New York Times, cyber attacks puts Russia's fingers on the switch of power plants. The U.S. says the Trump administration accused Russia on Thursday of engineering a series of cyber attacks that targeted American and European nuclear power plants and water and electric systems that could have sabotaged or shut down power plants at will. This is, again, very serious article. New York Times, read it. You can make your own judgment of where we are in terms of our political situation and cybersecurity, and maybe the public will start to take this stuff more seriously. But Russians have their fingers at the switch of our power plants, according to this article. Let's move on to number 7. Okay, number 7, most shared article, too inconvenient. Trump goes rogue on cybersecurity. So here's an article that was pretty interesting from Politico. Let me pull it up here. The President Trump, here we go. President Trump uses a White House cell phone that is not equipped with the sophisticated security features to shield his communications, according to two senior administrative officials. Departure of his practice, 2 predecessors that potentially expose him to hacking or surveillance. The president relies on cell phones to reach friends, and millions of Twitter followers have removed the staff efforts to strengthen the security measures around the cell phone. He uses at least 2 iPhones. according to U.S. officials, one capable of only making calls and the other equipped only to use Twitter apps and other preloaded handful of news sites. So not sure what this means. It seems like an opinion piece, but it just says that somebody within the White House says he's not using enough security on his iPhones. He's got 2 iPhones. So that was number 7 article. Let's move on to number 6. Okay, number 6, lawyers claim the UK Facebook users could be entitled to up to $12,500 in damages after breach of trust. ViralThread.com would like to apologize for this incorrect information provided in the original version on April 3rd. Upon further research, the claims stated within the articles were discovered to be false. But that was our 6th most popular article of the year. In short, the notion of Facebook users could claim damages by social network over Cambridge Analytics is highly speculative one, and just very theoretical at all. So I'm sure somebody must have been talked to by some attorney to say